Hello, everybody. Thundercake back again with another build or break an Age of Sigmar themed army idea video. This week, or this video, we're talking about Root Kings, which is a allegiance to Order army that I think is really interesting. The factions that we're going to be talking about today are mainly Sylvaneth and Free Cities uh, units, and then the kits we're using are Sylvaneth, Free Cities, Ogres, and Fyreslayer unit kits. I'm adding a red, yellow, green kind of stoplight option or grading to this video. So red means that the unit is probably a big stretch. Yellow means it might be a stretch, I'm not quite sure. Green means I think this unit really would work and would come together well. And then at the end, I'll give an overall grade of red, yellow, green to the project idea. So starting off, the typical conversion rules, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get as much as possible, especially for weapons, trying to keep it to GW parts, and then having units be easily recognizable without a long explanation. The inspiration for this primarily comes from Josh Reynolds' book called Eight Lamentations, Spear of Shadows. In it, they talk about these Root Kings who are a type of Duradin from the realm of Gyran, and they're these dwarves or these Duradin that live um, among the roots of these giant trees uh, in this giant kind of this forest of these huge trees. And they make their blades and their armor out of these seed pods of this plant, and it's just as sharp and as strong as metal. So they're kind of forging things out of living instruments or things that were living at one time, organically grown, I guess you would say. And there's kind of this great idea of like, okay, so what does a dwarf look like that's living under a tree and not deep underground? So here's where kind of the inspiration came from to start with. The book doesn't have much in it. They find a kind of a root king fallen hold, and it's described as a hollowed tree trunk that's connected through a series of branches to other tree trunks, and the branches kind of intertwine. Uh, and so not something that currently exists, but with a kind of a past settlement or race. So I thought that was really neat. Seems like Josh Reynolds left this as kind of a hook for people that wanted to build this army. There's not a ton of detail, but just enough to kind of get your imagination flowing. So with that in mind, in the community, there's been some people who've kind of ran with this idea already. Sometimes mini.wordpress.com has a great website I'll show you in a minute. And Brad Gamma and Makeshifts on TGA.community have some army projects out there. So let me switch out of my presentation. I'm able to. And go over here to the website. So this is Sometime Minis. I think his art is great. He's got a lot of good stuff up here. Some Dark Shadows, Ashwood Revenants, Desert Elves. I love his Desert Elves. Inquisitor 28. Right now, I want to talk about his Root King. So I saw the blurb in the book, and I started kind of delving around the internet, and I found this guy's stuff. Man, his illustrations, I love it. I particularly love kind of the wizard-looking guy, and this guy with these vines over here. And so if you want to go to this guy's website, give him some traffic, that'd be great. I'm not going to read through every little bit, but he goes through some heroes, and I think this Rune Grafter guy looks awesome. The Seedsmith looks awesome, and you can kind of imagine where you get these parts from the current kits, like Duradin kits, maybe some Tree or Spite Revenant kits, maybe some horns up here for this guy. He also talks about regular infantry and did some concept arts for him. I love this brush stalker with this kind of feral look with this stick growing out of him. It's something I'll use in some of my ideas. They all actually kind of have a stick growing out of them, kind of becoming one with the forest. I love these vines coming out of this guy as well. And he talks about large infantry, and man, if I could figure out how to make these guys maybe out of some iron jaw brutes or something, but looks like a Kurnothi weapon here, a big club, maybe the Iron Jaw's armor with a dwarf head in it. I don't know, but these things look freaking sweet. And then there's some behemoths he came up with, art down here as well. And one of my ideas draws pretty heavy from probably this one right here with this guy on top. Really like that a lot as well. So moving kind of past sometimes minis over to TGA. Here's Makeshifts, kind of TGA form thread. You can get on here and look at it, but he's used some traditional Duradin models mostly, painted them up in kind of a woodland theme. But after he did these basic ones, if I'm remembering this correctly, he started going a little bit more towards the sometimes minis look. I love his Warden King here with the branches on his helmet and the blade on his staff. It looks really cool. Great idea. And so he did that, and then there's a couple more images of where he's got trees growing out some dwarves' backs or dwarven backs. He painted this one guy up. Thought his paint job looked pretty good. And then on a second, oh, here it is. And he started doing some kit bashes with spite revenants, just putting dwarf heads on there. I like it. Not exactly my cup of tea, but props to him for getting these things done. And he used some Volkite berserkers, I believe, and just put some branches on the backs of them and changed some of their weapons. Again, it's pretty good imagination going on here. Like what he's thinking about. And then lastly, uh, Brad Gamma, man, he's got a great thread on TGA. So you just want to go through it. If you want to read this one day with a cup of coffee, it's a great Armies on Parade prep. Some really good paint jobs as well. Really love. Right now, that's not going to work well. Love what he did with his models. He's got this very kind of still Duradin look to him, painted in green. Great color scheme. Really like that guy. I don't know. He may not be. He may not be GW. He may be something else. But he 3D printed these shields, which I thought was great. Great idea. Love to get a hold of some of those. And then further on in his thread, he starts showing you some really neat stuff. So again, these kind of standard Duradin models, just changing the shields. Love the new shields. GW make these shields. Put an emblem on the banner. Thought that was really cool. It has a short story that goes along with it, but he really kind of comes to life. Probably on page 2 here. Got his gyrocopter. This is dwarfs cannons. And he started taking Arcanauts, giving them regular dwarf heads. The idea being that these are guys living higher up in the trees. And then he started building his display board. And man, his root guard, traditional dwarven models, gave him some good. This, I believe, so you got some cannons here. You got this Arcanaut Admiral looking guy with a new beard, new weapon, looking great. There he is again. Regular Cogsmith, Canopy Core. Gave some flying Duradin there. I think he uses them as sky riggers. But man, those guys look great. His Arcanauts, he gave him kind of traditional weapons, new heads a little bit. And then his last page, you see his board being built. And I'll scroll down here to the big board. And this thing looks great. Look at this. He's got this giant tree, these platforms, units, defensive positions all over the place. Definitely check this guy out. So this was a great. Oh, and he won a medal for Armors on Parade. That was pretty cool. Definitely check this guy out. I love his stuff. Love how. See if this works right. No, gotta switch this back. Technical difficulties, real quick. Minimize the screen a little bit on my other side. Get back to you guys. So in the community, let's go back a slide. I believe in the community, there's some really good stuff out there. Most of it's kind of on that technical side still, mechanical, Duradin, forged through iron, fire stuff. Love Brad Gamma's paint schemes and his display board, some of his unit conversion. Makeshift has that nice kind of tree vibe going on. Sometime minis have some great concept art. So looking at these three guys, I started coming up with my own riff on it, which you'll see coming along here. First thing, or one of the things I've started trying to add to these videos is a playable list. So if I was going to make a 1,000-point list, what would it look like? Pretty sure I'd use Dryka, have a branch Wraith, a branch Witch. I think those models are great. 10 Iron Drakes. I want to have something in the army that reminds me that, hey, these guys were dwarves. How maybe did they, maybe they were old Duradin force and expeditionary force, and they've kind of melded with the forest over time. So started to become more wood-like. These Iron Drakes, as you'll see in some of the mock-ups, have a little bit of kind of forest growth on them, but still the metals and the guns and things. And then the Spite Revenants, the Tree Lord, Dryka have turned more into the Sylvaneth looking thing, where it's just a little bit of a dwarven spirit left and a kind of a hulk of a tree. But in 20 Dryads, 5 Spite Revenants, and the Tree Lord, I had this idea probably a year ago. I still haven't done anything with it, but back then you could still combine Sylvaneth battalion or maybe a Wargrove with Duradin allies, and you could put, and it's back when Duradin still had their cannons, and so I was going to do Cogsmith and 2 cannons and have them completely kind of metal and non-transitioning into the wood stuff, and the Iron Drakes would be that first step, and then the next parts would be fully transitioned. So for his 1,000 points, you need a Sylvaneth Start collecting box, you need a box of Wildwoods, you need a Thundertusk, box of Dryads, box of Spite Revenants, box of Iron Drakes, you need Dryka, and you need some Fyreslayer Berserkers. So trying to price out these things, buying this straight from GWP $451. If you can get, your online retailer, most places you can get up to 20% discount. It drops up to 361. So that's kind of hefty for 1,000 points. You're getting a lot of bits left over, but hey, gotta spend money to make money, right? Or to have fun anyway. So first unit that I think I would make are these Iron Drakes. Then you can see a kind of group shot here. I've changed up some of their helmets to give them the Iron Breaker, I believe, the alternate build of this kit. Their helmets, they look a little bit more organic to me. And then this gave them some Dryad bits off the back. So, it looks like there's some trees growing on them. Gives you some range options for your army. Nice dwarven aesthetic still, so you know what's going on. Pretty easy to recognize. Give this one a big green circle. Pretty easy to do. I think the scale would work. You just got to cut some bits and bobs off the Dryads and go on. Next unit that kind of came to mind were these Spite Revenants. And then you can see the Spite Revenants on the bottom left there. That's their stock unit. To me, trying to make these things more Duradin organic and like Duradin turning into the trees around them. So you need some Fyreslayer bodies. And you take their hands and you replace some of these Spite Revenant hands and these wooden claws and again some wooden bits off the backs of them, showing that they're kind of turning in the trees. I think with the Fyreslayer kit, you can not put the helmets on some of the models, or if you do have to use the helmets, just not put the crest on them or cut the crests off. I would love some bare dwarf heads. I'm not quite sure where to get them right now. It's too bad. I'll have more Slayer models left laying around. But I really think a bare dwarf head would be great. Not in love with all the decals or the kind of emblems on their loincloths, but I'm not sure what I would do there. Maybe I would just use Agrax Earthshade to make it look like bark or something. Maybe kind of make it look less Fyreslayery. But I think these hands are close to the right scale. It'd be interesting to see if they would fit or not. But it's kind of showing that mutation from a dwarf to a tree. Thought about just kind of shoving their bodies in there where the spite bodies are, or sprite bodies, but I think that's too tall. If anything, you use the top half of those torsos and the dwarf legs. But these dwarf models, or dwarf models, excuse me, bodies and legs and torsos are all one piece, I think, or maybe two pieces. So I don't know if I want to cut them that much. But that maybe unit champion or something, that'd be an option. So gave this one a yellow. I haven't had any of these kits in my hands. So I'm not quite sure what they feel like or look like. I think this would work. I think it'd be maybe a little bit of work, but I think it'd be pretty cool. One of the ideas I really like is Dryka as a dwarf. Originally, I had kind of the Dryka body of a Fyreslayer torso in there. Thinking about it now, and I have the Dryka model, I would probably just change the head off and maybe put the Tree Lord beard on him. So he's got this giant, kind of massive beard hanging down. Leave the hair growing out of his head. Um, and again, he's kind of like maybe the Grove father instead of the Forge father that is, maybe seeding new dwarfs. Maybe they're, instead of ruins, they're planting seeds in their backs, and that's growing these trees out. And if you grow long enough, you turn into one of these guys, or a Kurnoth hunter or something like that. But I gave this one a big green thumbs up. You just got to change the head out, really. You can try the body. I'm not sure if it'd fit, but worst case scenario is big old head with a beard on there, right? Look pretty cool. Biggest probably stretch of a conversion to be a Tree Lord. I've got the Tree Lord Ancient, Spirited Durthu all up there, showing you the stock models. And then again, some really bad paint.net stuff, right? So my idea is you take a Frosthorn, Thundertusk, whatever the guy with the big wide antlers is, you put the kind of wood antlers on him from the Tree Lord, and you leave an ogre on the back of him. You put, if it'll fit, a Fyreslayer head or a dwarf head up there. You give his staff or spear or whatever, you put a Spite Revenant or a Kurnoth Hunter kind of tip on it so it looks more woodsy and eternal. And then back when you had your old Citadel Woods, I was thinking like you gotta have this tree growing out the back of this thing. I still think you need something like that. I'm not quite sure if the new Wildwoods would fit, even if you just I've just photoshopped just the top off of one. Don't know if that would fit, but I feel like you gotta try, right? Like if this works, it would be freaking sweet. A couple things. Does he need a staff maybe? Does he need a vine whip hand thing to represent a Tree Lord or Tree Lord Ancient? it's a pretty big stretch. Like the base is probably the same. The model profile is really different. This is squat and low. You got some bits on there. Maybe I need to change the tail up as well, but maybe the tail becomes the vine whip. Um, but you probably have to tell somebody what this is. I don't know if they're going to get it off the top of the head. Maybe off the base size, because there's nothing else in the army unless they think it's Ilarial, but yeah, it's not her. So this is a yellow. It probably should be red, but I really want this guy to happen. Um, so that's kind of the conversion models, and then the base models, just some regular dryads, regular branch witch. Maybe find a way to take like half of that Spite Revenant wood body and use a Fyreslayer body to get like a branch wizard or branch forger or a seed sower or something. But I kind of like having some just naturally Sylvaneth organic models in there showing that they're allies and the forest has accepted them and things like that. Or maybe this is what happens to you if you spend too long in a forest after Spite Revenants devolve or evolve or mold in the dryads later down the road, something like that. So this is obviously green, right? You just got body kits, dry brush them, you're good to go. So, that gives me 1,000 points. What are some other plans I might have for this army? Maybe we need a unit of longbeards or hammers in here. I've got, if you do Spite Revenants and you do 10 of them, I've only, I only have 5 in that army list, but if you did 10, you've got the weapons. I've also got a lot of Eternal Guard. I've got 10 Eternal Guard who I'm not using the Deepwood Ranger kind of weird axe things. So I've done some Photoshop here using the, I believe these are the Longbeard models. Like use a new banner from the Spite Revenants, give them the Eternal Guard axe for the champion model there. Left the drummer alone, but then you've got, would a Spite Revenant sword tip into a spear be a better fit with some, trees growing out of his back, or would taking um, those Eternal Guard blades, putting them on the end of these axes, be better great weapons? I think that might be the best fit, and that's why I ended up doing 3 of them. So I think them plus maybe some of that wood stuff from the Dryads or the Spite Revenants on the back, and then doing a different paint scheme. Like you got to paint these guys green, I think, or brown, but brown's boring. Gives them like, hey, we're part of the forest, but we're still Dwarven. We're not to the point where we're mind melding with the aliens like they do in um, the Jaeger movie Pacific Rim. But I thought this would be nice, another kind of 140 points, give you some more dwarf feel to it as well. So that would be the next unit I would do if I had to do something or needed something else. And that's definitely a green as well. So that's about it for kind of what I had planned for this army. Current status, I've got a couple of these things, need to acquire a bunch of stuff, so probably need to spend about 300 bucks on it. I give it a big yellow because some of those units, like the Spite Revenants, I'm not sure if the scale works with the hands and the bodies. I'm not sure if that Tree Lord works. This is a great thing in my mind. It's also kind of like third on my list, right? I've got my Cog Forts that I've kind of stalled on. Now I'm working on this Sigmar Crusader army I really like. Then maybe this. I've got some other ideas I'll try and get up on the internet as well. So that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, if you have any questions or you got any ideas, let me know. I'd love to hear some feedback.